expert, if I could speak. Well, planning for the day you die is hardly on the top of anyone's to-do list.
Yeah, we don't really want to think about that. But making your finances a priority now can save your family so much trouble in the long run. Joining us now live this afternoon is certified financial planner Andrea Kaye with Preferred Financial Group. And one of the things we want to avoid is probate. What is probate?
It's a big word and it's kind of a mystery, but it is nothing more than a court-supervised distribution of your assets when you're gone. Most people have a will or a trust, and since you're not here to say where you'd like your assets to go, the court will help to execute and make sure your wishes are carried out. So if you want to avoid probate, there's some very simple things you can do because it can be costly.
I would say first probably have a will, right?
Well, you don't necessarily have to have a will, and that's what I'd like to just share with people is that you can do a few simple things to avoid probate that don't include an estate plan or using an attorney even having to go through probate.
So what do you have to do? I mean, can I just write this down on a napkin and say, this is where I want all my assets to go?
It's actually simpler than that. It depends on the type of assets that you've got.
That's good to know.
It is. If you've got a home, there's something in Wisconsin that you can do. It's really intended just for a primary residence.
Okay.
All of these things I'm going to mention are the equivalent of adding a beneficiary to different things that don't always have one. Okay. So on a home, you can add what's called a statutory TOD, and that stands for transfer on death. And you can name beneficiaries. That way that, which is typically some of people's largest assets is a home, it can avoid probate.
You hope that the house is paid for.
True, yeah. You don't want to transfer anybody your debt.
If you're a beneficiary, you like to get anything that you can.
Yep.
So,
okay.
And then another thing is if you've got even just money in the bank. Okay. Typically when you go to set up an account, they don't ask you if you'd like a beneficiary, but you can ask them to add what's called a POD or pay on death. You can add a POD to savings account, checking account, CDs, any type of instrument at a bank that you have an investment or a savings in.
Now, Andrea, I've noticed, though, sometimes when you set up a 401k account or you transfer a 401k account, that they sort of get that information right away. Is that a good time to get that information on paper?
It's a good time. You can, for investments that are not IRA, you can add a TOD, transfer on death. That's the registration type that you will execute or register the account at the institution. But for a 401k, I always encourage people not just to have a beneficiary, but a contingent beneficiary. That way it can't by default get paid to your estate. And in addition to that, I want to note that people change jobs, and in a series of a person's life, a lot of things happen. You can get married, divorced, have children, lose a parent, and if you don't update those things, it still may not go where you'd like it to go.
And it's very simple.
It's very simple. You know, typically when I have people in my office, even for the first time, because it is something that's often put on the back burner, I'll call the carriers or the companies with them, get the forms faxed to our office, and I always tell them I'll be pleasantly persistent in helping you get those things done.
So what's the one thing you could tell people as we sum up here to avoid this mistake so that when you do die, you don't leave that burden with your spouse or your sibling, your children? Or
you know, I try to tell people to check your registrations maybe one time a year. Make it a priority like your income taxes, or maybe the end of the year if you do a budget. Have kind of a checklist of things that you do. Typically people let it go for years and years, so just encourage you to keep it top of mind even though it's something that really doesn't benefit you.
So POD or TOD?
TOD, yeah, they're just acronyms and they're really easy to avoid a lot of money and trouble for your beneficiaries.
Good to know, thank you. If you got a question for one of our experts, email them at asktheexpert@today'stmj4.com. You can also leave a voicemail, so please do that by calling this number, 967